I've been asked so many times about the adoption that I figured I would record a quick video to tell the story, since I've told it so many times, and to save those of you who don't like to read as much the task of reading a whole write-up on it. Basically, it started in 2004. My youngest daughter was born with a very rare genetic disorder, an immune deficiency. And it was a tremendous challenge. She suffered so much as a little baby. I mean, she had pneumonia within weeks of being born. She had to have heart surgery at the age of 4 months. And we didn't really have a treatment program. We didn't even know what we were up against for the first while. And the doctors kept telling us that there was a 25% chance that any other kid that we had, any other baby that we had, would have the same thing. And so we listened to the doctors. We were pretty afraid of having to deal with this again, and the pain that it would cause any other children. That we thought about, and we talked about it a little bit, how we could grow our family, but not run into that issue. Thankfully, since then, we've gotten a handle on her condition, and she's on a treatment program and does just as well, if not better, than my other kids. But in 2008, fall of 2008, we were at a high school reunion and ran into a friend that had adopted 2 kids from Liberia, Africa. And it was interesting because my wife hit it off immediately with this gal. She was like, "Hey, let's hang out with these guys. I'm doing a girls' weekend together." And just seemed like every other day she had something lined up with this friend. And come to find out, she was really interested in the adoption process and how this gal decided to adopt from Liberia, Africa, and how much it costs and how long it took and all that kind of stuff. And one day, after weeks of this, she came home and she said, "Honey, I'd really like to consider adopting. I'd really like to look into this." And being the wonderful husband that I am, I said, "Well, whatever keeps you occupied." And it wasn't long before I realized that she was serious and I needed to get serious about it. So she contacted the agency, and they sent over a website with a bunch of photos of kids in the orphanage. And we agreed to look at the pictures and see if anything really struck us. And we had talked about, so we had 3 girls at the time, we talked about maybe adopting an infant boy, a young boy that we could raise and I could do all the outdoorsy stuff with. And anyway, so we agreed to look at the albums separately so that we wouldn't give each other any biases. And so I went to work, she did her thing, and at work I ended up pulling it up in the afternoon, and it was really a surreal experience because I was essentially shopping for my child, which, who does that? It's something that I never thought I would be doing. But I started going through the pictures, and obviously these kids are well taken care of in the orphanage by African standards, but they're raised in poverty. They've gone through so much in their life that your heart just begins to open up to them. And as I went through it, I saw one picture that rocked me. It was a picture of Surprise, and I think he was 9 years old at the time. And I thought, oh man, that's my kid. That's my son. At the moment I looked at him, I just knew that was my son. And then I thought, how am I going to tell my wife about this? So the other thing is, right next to his picture, it said sibling. And it had another picture, and it was a picture of Thomas, who was about 6 years old at the time. And I thought, man, okay, an older boy and his brother. I don't know how I can sell my wife on this. So I went home, and I think we put the kids to bed. We did dinner, put the kids to bed, and I mentioned the photo album to Beth. I said, "Did you look at the pictures?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, what was that all about? What did you find?" And she goes, "Well, how would you feel about adopting an older boy?" And I said, "Okay." And she said, "And his brother." And there were multiple older boy sibling sets in the orphanage. But I looked at her and I said, "Do you mean Surprise and Thomas?" And she said, Yeah, Yeah, exactly. And so at that point, we knew, and we both had individual confirmation that those were our boys. And so we started the process, and I'll tell you more about the process in another video or another write-up. But it ended up taking about 4 years and a lot of prayers and a lot of miracles, but it ended up working out. We were able to bring the boys home here in 2012, and that's where the story begins.